Hello, Bama Nation. This is Martin Houston, and it's time for the first response post-game show right here on Tide 1029 on Facebook Live. Glad you are joining me. What a great victory. Alabama takes care of business yet again. Tampa bound after a 24-7 victory over the Washington Huskies. I know you're beginning to log in, so as you do that, just want to remind you what we're going to talk a little bit about. Look at the key plays of the game, key players in the game, as well as your good, bad, and ugly. Thoughts on Kiffin, play calling. We'll go over the stats here in just a moment, as well as take a quick preview, look into Alabama and January 9th and who I think they'll be playing in the national championship game. Congratulations once again, Alabama playing in their 49th game as the #1 team in the nation under Coach Saban, moving that record to 44-5 with a resounding victory. And so as you log in, I want to encourage you, let me know where you're logging in from, where you're checking in on first response. What's that hometown? Also, as I said, share your good, bad, and ugly. Let me know who your player of the game is. I think it's going to be an obvious choice, but nevertheless, want to hear what your player of the game is as well from an offensive, defensive, and special teams point of view. What did you think about Alabama's victory? Let's get right into what I think the key plays of the game are. A couple people already checking in. Brandon Kidd said that Bo would have over 200 yards. I think had they ran the ball a little bit more, which I don't understand why they didn't, you would have nailed it, Brandon. But Kiffin was Kiffin in his typical unfortunate style. I know it's going to sound ugly, but thanks, Kiffin, for what you've done, but good riddance and good luck to you. Hopefully we can get one more good game out of you and as we move forward in the championship series. So let's look at a couple things, having a couple issues here on the technical side, trying to get up the stats here, and we can run through those stats as a whole for Alabama. The team stats as a whole, total yards, Alabama 326 yards, 194 for Washington. Time of possession, Alabama 30 minutes and 45 seconds, Washington 29-15. Turnovers, the team that was plus 21, the best in the country, had 3 turnovers. Alabama had 0. A couple other things, Joe Solis checking in from H-Town. James Shelley Harris, Roll Tide, roll, gotta play a bit better on offense. That's so true. If we're going to make it into to number 17, we're going to definitely have to play better on the offensive side of the ball. Hunter Sink, defense is the MVP. Great game for the team. Kathy Jennery, Bo is the player of the game. James Shelley Harris also gives the defense the player of the game. Carlton Brooks, I'm going to talk about why does Kiffin not play to our strength? I don't know. I'm really questioning Saban's decision to keep Kiffin on the staff. I mean, the offense looked out of sorts, and to me, it was really bad today as a whole. Defense, Kathy Jr. saying defense is the best. Stephen Bowers, Bo came up big along with the defense as usual. Chad Felton didn't understand why Kiffin wanted to try to run Jalen as much as he did. Bo definitely had the hot hand, and also think that neither Ohio State or Clemson can stop Bo. Agree with those thoughts, Chad, as well. Curtis Ware, a few mistakes, but what a game by the O-line and Bo. I think had we ran the ball more, we could have put this thing away a lot earlier. But nevertheless, Alabama gets the big victory, 24-7. The defense looked shaky on that second drive of the game, but they settled in. Washington had 14 first downs, Alabama 16. A couple other key stats, and then we'll get into some individual numbers. First downs, as I said, 16-14, Alabama favor. Both teams were abysmal on third down efficiency. Washington 6 for 17, Alabama 4 for 14. Both of them 0 for 1 on fourth down. Total yards, Alabama, as I said, 326, with only 57 of those coming in the passing game. Jalen 7 for 14, 20 for 38 for Jake Browning for a total of 150 yards passing. They only had 44 rushing yards. Washington, another dominant performance by the defense with 29 rushing attempts. They averaged 1.5 yards per carry for a total of 44 yards. Alabama, 269 yards on 50 attempts, 5.4 per carry. Ugly, sloppy game for Alabama. 11 penalties for 66 yards. That's going to be part of my ugly conversation. But nice to see a goose egg in the turnover ratio. Alabama, 0 turnovers. And the Washington Huskies, 3 turnovers. And they were the best in the business at keeping the ball and protecting the ball. But Alabama was able to have some huge success. Let's look at some individual stats, but before we do that, just checking in on your comments. Let me know, once again, who your key players were for the game, who you had as the MVP. If it was you can give me an offensive and a defensive player of the game. Also, what do you think the game-changing moment? Gary Peel says, Roll Tide from Tennessee. Need to run the ball more. Great job on defense. Lisa Johnson, Bama does it again. Lafayette Duke checking in. Roll Tide. Brandon Kidd, officials were bad. I did think that there was quite a few missed calls, bad calls there. But Alabama didn't play as clean a game as I'd like to see. Lafayette Duke saying all the personal fouls at the end, according to her, were BS. Washington were a bunch of sore losers. Lafayette, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that, but I'm also gonna point out something that Alabama did that I think contributed to that. They did it early in the game under the ugly segment. I'm getting some thoughts from you in regards to the key plays and key players. Not seeing any good, bad, and ugly. Let me know what you think when it comes to that. Mark Anders, keep with the good info. Well, thanks. I'll keep trying to get that. James Hewitt checking in from McMinnville, Tennessee. And Brandon Kidd saying Evan. I think you regarding Rashawn Evans, unsung hero there. And Curtis Ware, his player of the game, Bo, and the DBs. As you guys continue to see that, let me just get into some individual stats here. Of course, the player of the game, the MVP, without a shadow of a doubt, Bo Scarborough today, 19 carries, 180 yards, 9.5. What stinks about that number is Jalen Hurts had 19 carries for 50 yards. Hey, Kiffin, give the ball to the running backs. Stop trying to run the quarterback. He was not effective after a couple, and he had one long run of 33 yards. So the reality of it is on his other 18 carries, he had a total of 17 yards, just over 1 yard, and Bo was averaging 9.5. You got to give it to the big man and stay with the flow and the momentum. But hey, that's Kiffin for you. Love him and hate him and all that all in the same time. But look at it this way. We only have one more game with him, and let's hope he doesn't cost us in the national championship game, which I don't put it all on him. But that what I saw tonight reminded me of what he did against Ohio State when we could have put the game away, and he tried he tried to thanks, Cameron. I was tapping the pen a little bit, so thanks for telling me stop tapping the pen or killing the pen in your words. But, you know, he did the same thing against Ohio State a couple years ago that I think led to us losing. When you look at my key plays of the game, I think the Ryan Anderson play, the big interception when it was a 10-7 game just before half. I have to give both guys a shout on that. Tony Brown on the blitz, Ryan Anderson on the interception. Two guys playing their roles to perfection. Great interception and then a great return. Once again, that 11th defensive touchdown, 15th non-offensive touchdown for Alabama, the most in over 20 years. Ryan Anderson making a big-time play, giving Alabama momentum going in at the half. Bo Scarborough, his run when it was 7-0, when he came in and made that big run in the first half to get the touchdown, breaking 5 tackles on the way to the end zone. That was a big-time key play in the game, tying the game up. And from that point on, Alabama totally dominated up until the last drive or so. I don't think Washington had any plays on our side of the field, while Alabama in the first half had 20 plays in Washington territory, and we just cannot come away with just 17 points, or 10 points actually, on the offensive side of the ball. Have concerns after this win. Brandon Kidd says, ugly lane, laugh out loud. Kathy Jeremy, penalties kept us from looking like our normal great team. The officials missed several calls against Washington. Agree with that. But I take all of this back to play calling. We were just out of sorts on offense. We didn't look very sharp before the penalties, where the clock was running out. It seemed like there was communication issues. There was several things that happened in that game that reminded me of the first game of the year versus the college football semifinals. When we look at the overall performance of the offensive line, when we ran our plays, we looked good. When we were trying to do some things and not going with the flow of the game, it cost us. When you look at the job that J.K. Scott did in the first half, you have to give him a shout out. Keeping Washington pinned back the entire first half. 19-yard line was our average starting position, while we started, I think, average at the 46. So all of those things. J.K. Scott, his punting was huge. So he's one of my key players of the game. From an offensive standpoint, it's easy to give Bo the offensive player of the game, without a doubt, having the 180 yards as a whole. Could have had a lot more, should have had about 25 to 30 carries. No reason he didn't, other than Lane Kiffin and his play calling. And I know I'm going to beat that horse to death, but Lane Kiffin could cost us a national title if this is not corrected. I don't know what Saban's going to do. I trust him as a coach, but I question his decision to keep Kiffin here through the playoffs, because what I saw today could cost us against a better opponent. James Carnes, I still say at the end of the game, end of the year, USC right now could beat anyone. Don't believe that hype. USC would not beat Alabama. Everybody's talking about how good USC is playing. It is what it is. USC is a good team, but all you people who tickle me just because they changed the quarterback and they're playing, they beat a bad Pac-12 rest of their schedule. They may be as good as the other team, but I don't think they could beat anyone just because of what you've seen on the field. Hunter Sink, it's like Kiffin was trying to lose this game for us. Could have ran the ball down their throats the whole second half and win by at least 30. Could have ran the ball down their throat, Hunter, actually, the entire first half. But Kiffin wasn't calling. I will say this. Well, I'm going to save it for the good here in just a moment. Brandon Nichols, Scarborough was hot early, but Kiffin went to a ton of quarterback runs, as well as Hurts called himself on the option. That was the biggest issue. Yeah, I said this during the game. A couple years ago, Gus Malzahn, even though they were running what looked to be the option, they were actually telling the quarterback when to give it, when to keep it. And we're going to need to do that with Hurts, because he is misreading that option on several times. One time they had an option pitch where he should have pitched it to Bo. It was just several things in there that Hurts did. Don't get me wrong, the young man as a freshman has been awesome as a whole, but he's going to have to play better in the national championship game. Curtis Ware saying, agreeing with me once again on J.K. Scott. And, of course, J.K. Scott being the second-team punter, I agree with you, Curtis, is about as big a snub as there's been all year. And, by the way, he didn't even make the Ray Guy top 10 punters list. So that was another snub when it comes to that. John Horton Jr., when we asked to run the ball, we didn't meet our quarterback. That's true. Totally forgot Brandon Kidd pointing out about Derek Dieter. He had a couple big plays early in the game that helped keep a drive alive. So good job from him. And On the defensive side of the ball, you could pick all of those guys as the players of the game there, but I think Ryan Anderson's play was good enough and big enough to make him the player of the game because he played consistently the rest of the game as well. But take your pick. Jonathan Allen, they ended up with 5 sacks. Tim Williams was around the quarterback the entire time. Tony Brown played well. All of those things add up. But the unsung hero, the guy who's never mentioned, as much as I get frustrated with Kiffin and his play calling, I love what Jeremy Pruitt did at the end of that game. We were still blitzing, we were still aggressive, and we didn't give up and say, hey, go down and get a cheap touchdown. We were playing right to the very end, and I like that mindset. Kathy Jenny said you can definitely see the Kiffin spark is gone. It's like he had already left us. Brandon Ritchie, Kiffin should not be here for this championship run. I tend to agree, but hey, hopefully he'll finish it out, and Saban will take a little bit more control over the play call. Carlton Brooks, I blame the clock delays directly on Kiffin. Yeah, with the fact that they still have him looking to the sideline instead of going ahead and running the play, that's definitely a big-time error. Chat Felton, do you think Bama opens up at a double-point favorite over Ohio State? I think they may open up double-digit favorite over Ohio State, and I think earlier I'd seen where they were like an 8-point favorite over Clemson. I think it's going to be Clemson who we play. Cameron Rossi, I thought Washington would have tried at least one trick play. The lack of trick plays, everybody talked about it, but I think Washington thought they could come in and play mano-a-mano and line up. And I can tell you're going to hear this all week. Everybody's going to talk about how physical and how dominant or how good this Washington defense is. And they did look like they were really good. But like I said, it's because of the play calling. We averaged over 5 yards a run with the quarterback and Damian Harris bringing that average down by having 28 carries combined for 80 yards and an average of 5.9 combined. That's what they averaged, where Bo was averaging 9.5. We should have fed the beast. If we did Bo like we did Henry last year, this game would have been put away and would not have been close. MJ Jower says it was a great game, but Kiffin was trying to lose the game. What a sore loser. What a sore loser is that. Carlton Brooks, Ryan Anderson made money today. Bo, too. I agree. Ryan Anderson is one of the unsung heroes or underrated guys on this defense because he happens to play with a bunch of other great guys. Let's get to the good, bad, and ugly. I'm going to start off with the ugly. I thought the play calling, and if you've been listening anytime, you know how I feel about that. The play calling was atrocious, and it just consisted. I thought that, hey, we're going to flip it in the second half. We're going to start running the ball like we've done in the other games. Well, we really never went to that. We came out, Bo makes the long run. The next drive, we come out, and we immediately go back to the pass. And one thing that Kiffin did, we did this about 4 times tonight where we ran a play-action pass off when we weren't running the ball. Play-action pass, you set up play-action passes. We started the game with a play-action pass when we hadn't ran the ball. And so who's going to be faked out by that? No one. And that's what happened. And we did that 3, 4, maybe 5 times in this game where we were running a play-action pass on first down at the start of a drive. We hadn't even ran the ball, so it just doesn't work that way. So the play calling overall, the style of play calling, when we call certain plays, and the fact that we were not consistent at the line of scrimmage and got several delay of game penalties, as well as were rushing at the end of the clock. Something else that was ugly and surprising for me, and it also, I think, went into the way the game ended. At the tip-off, the Alabama players did not show sportsmanship. When they did not reach out and shake the hands of the Washington players, I thought that was tacky, classless, and I was disappointed with what happened with, what happened with the Alabama players walking off the field and not shaking hands. That is a classless move, and I just don't agree with it. I don't know what your thoughts are, and I think that contributed to the mess that we had at the end of the game. Brandon Kitcher asking me about the ejection, but I'm not sure what happened. Let me see. Alabama, somebody, Sports Illustrated, the Alabama handshake scandal is much to do about nothing. Somebody's come back and saying that they actually shook hands. Well, I went back and looked at it live. They must have shook hands before. But I know at the command of the officials, when they were asked to shake hands, they did not shake hands with the opponents. I'm going to have to raise up here and read a couple comments that kind of got away from me. But John Horton is saying that I hate the shift. If they don't move out of their D, then we need to quit shifting and run it down their throats. MJ Jowers, we never needed Kiffin. He's a joke. Chad Felton, how does Kiffin try to get the ball to Calvin Ridley the entire game? I don't know what Kiffin was doing in this game. Brandon Kiffin has been good, but he still has a lot to learn. Well, he just needs to be consistent and run whatever's working. That's what he needs to do. But back to the good, bad, and ugly. The ugly, I think the way the game ended was, and undoubtedly they shook the hands before, but that doesn't matter if Alabama shook the hand before. At the end of the coin toss, when the officials say shake the hands, you shake hands. I don't know if they did before or not, but just being a player. And like I said, you could totally disagree with me on whether or not they should have shaken hands. If the officials tell you to shake the opponent's hand, then that's what you do, because the Washington players made a step forward. So what would have been the big deal if Alabama had done likewise? But anyway, neither here nor there. That's my thoughts. That's my opinion. I guess that's the value of being a guy that's on this side talking. I get to give those. But hey, you can give yours in comments there as well. The bad was Jalen's passing and decision making. When he threw the ball, he was high, he was long, he was late. And then when he didn't throw it, numerous times, he's waiting on the guys to be wide open, and he ends up running the ball, taking a sack, or throwing it out of bounds late, or running out of bounds late. Jalen has to get better as a passer before the game. I know he's going to get better when we get into next year, but this year we need him to be better when we go against the Clemson Tigers or Ohio State. Hey, the bad was we didn't run Bo enough. The good was we didn't start the game off with a speed sweep, and we actually didn't run it till the end of the game. That's the only good thing I have to say about the play calling by Kiffin in this game, is we did not run a speed sweep until the game was decided late in the game. And, of course, the good was Bo Scarborough and his dominant performance in that run where he took it, almost the length of the field, 68 yards on the touchdown, had, another big run during that drive as well. A couple more thoughts and comments that you guys have and want to get to before I sign off here. And just hang in there with me just a second. Some people said maybe let me see. Cameron Rossi said maybe the play calling was vanilla, not to show our hand. Well, Cameron, we didn't have that game wrapped up. I mean, you can't be vanilla if you're not guaranteed to win. And at any point, a couple big plays, and they were right back in that. So I don't think it had anything to do with not wanting to show our hand. Nick Saban himself says he plays one game at a time, and he doesn't play that game for the next week. So we needed to win that game, and I think we just stunk it up. Brendan, I'm not sure what you're referring to when you talk about the ejection. Give me some thoughts on that and let me know. MJ Jowers, Kiffin should find a ride home from the dome. Cameron Ross, we haven't needed to show our hands for the last 3 games. All of you guys that keep talking about not showing our hands, you can't just show up and play offense. Offense is a momentum thing. We are playing as good as we can play on offense, and we're not doing very good right now. We have got to do better on the offensive side of the ball. That wraps up this edition. Once again, I'll give you a few more closing thoughts and comments on Alabama. But before I do that, I want to remind you about the Empowerment Center for Leadership and Mentoring. That's part and parcel of how I'm able to do what I do on this radio show. on Tide 102.9, 100.9 on the radio dial, the Radio Pup. You can grab that Radio Pup app for your smartphone. Also, you can check us out online. I mean, not online, but on Facebook. Facebook Live on my personal page, Martin Houston. Go to Martin Houston fan page as well. Give us a like. And right there, each and every week from 6 to 7 every morning, we have a morning blitz where you can tune in. Glad gonna have one more show where we're talking about Alabama having one more game. So wanting to wish everybody a happy new year. But before I sign off, Alabama has an opportunity to win number 17. Will it be against Clemson? Will it be against Ohio State? Either one, I think Alabama has a slight revenge factor against Clemson because they stunk it up on defense last year. And that's not my words, that's the players' words. Jonathan Allen, Davin Tomlinson, and the crew, they feel like they played horrible. Clemson embarrassed them, and they wanted Clemson, and they want Clemson bad. So we'll look to see what they do if they get a chance at Clemson. Of course, 2 years ago, Ohio State knocked them out of the college football playoffs, and they want them if they have an opportunity. So either one of these teams, I think Alabama will be motivated to play, but I think it'll be Clemson. I think Dabo Swinney has an opportunity to revenge a loss against Coach Nick Saban. And Clemson, with their offense, their skill set, Watson, Williams, and running back and the running game is, I think, going to be too much for Ohio State. Ohio State's weak in the front. On the offensive line, Barrett's not as accurate a quarterback. So I'm going to give the nod to Clemson. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. On Clemson's side, I think they'll get up into the 30s before the game is over. And I think Ohio State will be somewhere in the 20s. So I'm going with a 34 to 24 win for the Clemson Tigers. Don't hold me to that because I don't watch those two enough to know them well enough. But I do think Clemson is the better team. And as I will wrap this up, once again, I want to remind you about the Empowerment Center for Leadership and Mentoring, where we're equipping, engaging, educating, and empowering your most valuable assets as your people, your team members. So whether you need someone to help you come speak to your organization, your team members, give us a call, 205-826-1381, or go online, martinhouston.org. Would love to come speak to your team, to do some leadership training, seminars, etc. Go to martinhouston.org, and I would love to come and share with you. For First Response post-game show and the Alabama Crimson Tide, the home of Alabama Sports Tide 102.9 and 100.9, I'm Martin Houston signing off until Monday morning at 6 a.m. You can join us right there. And don't forget to follow at the Blitz 1029, at the Blitz 1029, and like the Martin Houston fan page, because that's where we'll be broadcasting the Morning Blitz on Facebook Live starting in the new year. Happy 2017, and may Alabama get number 17 in the new year. Until then, roll tide and have a blessed night.